This is the video. This is the video for problem set 17, module 4. Today, students are multiplying basically decimal times decimal. We're going to learn multiply place value times place value and get our product. Basically, we're relating decimal and fraction multiplication to show how they are the same. So let's take a look at letter D. 6 times 3/10. We know that 6 times 3 is 18, but 1 times 10 is 10. So my answer should have been 1.8. Now, let me demonstrate that by doing this. 6 times 3/10. I know I'm going to multiply my non-zero numbers and get 18. But this is 6 ones, but this and 3/10. 6 ones times 3/10. Ones times tenths. In your mind, you should be thinking 1 times tenths and getting tenths. That means my answer is going to be in tenths. So 1.8 because that is how we do it. All right, 18 tenths. Your last digit is the placeholder for that number. So that means my 0 in the number 10 should end with the last digit, which is 8. So the answer is 18 tenths. Let's go to this next one. 6 tenths times 3/10. Same concept, except this time we're doing this right here. 6 times 3 is 18. Tenths times tenths is hundredths. So therefore 0.18. And then finally 6 hundredths times 3/10. 6 times 3 is 18. We have hundredths times tenths. All right, what is hundredths times tenths? We have hundredths times tenths. What is 100? What is 1 times 1? 1. What is 100 times 10? Hopefully you said 1,000. Okay, so that means my answer is going to be 18 thousandths. So this is the tricky one to where to place the decimal. Where would I place the decimal in 18 thousandths?
You would add a 0 and then you would put
I'm going to start at the end and go until I get to 1,000. That 1 represents the placement of the decimal. But in my empty spaces, I always place a 0. So that means my answer is 18 thousandths. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the next one, which is 12 tenths times 4. So we have 12 tenths times 4. So I know that 12 times 4 is what? What is 12 times 4?
48.
Hopefully you said 48. Alright, but this is 12 tenths times 4. My answer is going to be 48 what? 10. So where does my decimal go in 48 tenths?
In the middle.
Between the 4 and the 8. Okay, boys and girls, this is essentially saying 12 tenths times 4 over 1. And I know that 12 times 4 is 48. 10 times 1 is 10. So 48 tenths is written as 48 tenths. Okay? Now I want you to go to the next one. Okay, letter H is 12 tenths times 4 tenths. So we have 12 tenths times 4 tenths. 12 times 4 is 48, of course. But what is 12 tenths times 4 tenths? Okay, that's writing 12 tenths times 4 tenths. 12 times 4 is 48. What is 10 times 10?
100.
Okay, so how do I write 48 hundredths as a decimal? Where does that decimal go in the number 48 for 48 hundredths?
In front of the 4.
So I'm going to go backwards until I get to the 1, and there's my decimal. And you can place a 0 and 4 in front of that if you like. So the answer was 0.48. And the last one is letter I of 12 hundredths times 4 tenths. 12 hundredths times 4 tenths. So what's 12 times 4? Okay, this is saying 12 hundredths times 4 tenths. 12 times 4 is 48, but what is 100 times 10?
1,000.
Good job. Now, in the number 48 thousandths, where does the decimal go?
The decimal goes behind the zero, before you put the zero.
Okay, so we're going to write the number 1,000 until we get to the 1 and place the decimal. Empty spaces hold what number?
0.
Okay. So 0 and 48 thousandths is the answer. All right, number 3 says a Boy Scout has a length of rope measuring 7/10 meter. He uses 2/10 of the rope to tie a knot at one end. How many meters of rope are in the knot? So he has a length measuring 7/10. He uses 2/10 of that. What operation did I use to find this answer?
Subtraction.
Okay, he's going to use 2/10 of that. So we have 7/10, but I want to find what? 2/10 of it. So what operation is that, class?
Subtraction.
What's the word of mean in math? So we're going to multiply times 2/10. Okay. 7 times 2 is what?
14.
What is tenths times tenths? What is tenths times tenths, class?
100.
Where does the decimal go?
1.
Okay. So it's 0 and 1400 meters. All right, number 4 says, after just 4/10 of a 2 5/10 mile race was completed, Lennox took the lead and remained there until the end of the race. Letter A is, how many miles did Lennox lead the race? It says, after 4/10 of a 2 5/10 mile race. So first of all, what does the word of mean in math?
Multiplication.
Okay. So I'm going to say 4/10 times, what is 2 5/10 as a fraction? 2.5. What is that as a fraction, class? 2.5 is what as a fraction? That is in tenths. So I know my denominator is 10. What about 2 and 5? We talked about this. The answer is 25 tenths to that question that you asked. So it should be 25 tenths. It's not 2 over 5. Okay, I've never said anything like that. We should be paying attention. Okay? Now, 10 times 10 is what?
100.
4 times 25 is what? And that's equal to what?
1 whole.
Now, the question is, how many miles did he lead the race? Did he lead the race for 1 mile? It says after 4/10 he led. After 4/10. We just found what 4/10 of the race was. We found out that that was 1. So is the answer 1 or is it something else? Okay. Because it says after that first mile, he led the race. So if I start with 2 5/10 miles, how do I find out how many is left over after just 1 mile? What am I going to do with that 1 mile? I'm going to get rid of that 1 mile. I'm going to take 2 5/10 and I'm going to subtract 1 mile. What is 2 5/10 minus 1? What is 2 5/10 minus 1?
1.5.
1 5/10 miles. That is the answer to letter A. All right, letter B says, Reed, the second place finisher, developed a cramp with 3/10 of the race remaining. How many miles did Reed run without a cramp? What operation am I going to use to solve this right here? So 3/10 times how far was the race? 25/10. So you should have multiplied and gotten 7/500. Okay? This is what you should be doing. 7/500 is how far it was that he had the cramp. It wants to know how far did he run without it. So we know that the race was 2 5/10 miles. And we just found out that 3/10 of it was how far and how long he had the cramp. So what am I going to do right here to find out what was without the cramp? Hopefully you said subtract. All right. I cannot regroup any of those two, so I'm going to have to come all the way over here. And this becomes a 15, but then I have to regroup again to make the 0 a 10. Minus 5 is 5. 14 minus 7 is 7. And then 1. So the answer was 1 7/500 miles. And that's how you solve the last one. Please be sure to re-look at all these problems to check your work, make sure it is all correct. And that is the end of lesson 17.